Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Williard and you're watching Photosynthesis. This also goes along with the unit ecology. So you have a graphic organizer that looks like this, and we're going to go through and fill this in together and summarize the process of photosynthesis. You may or may not have heard of photosynthesis before. It has been mentioned a few times in class when we talked about our food chain and our producers. This is the process by which plants make their own food. It's how they take that energy from the sun and convert it into something usable for the plants and something that we actually depend on as well. So let's look at the formula for photosynthesis and then break it apart. So the overall equation: plants need water in order to function because it's a part of this chemical equation of photosynthesis, helping them to make their food, which is glucose. So they need water, which you may also see as H2O. They're going to also need to take in carbon dioxide, which you may also see written as CO2. You'll notice that the sun is not actually included in the equation. That's because it's the energy that's needed to make this happen, but it's not actually a reactant. So we put the sun over the arrow. It provides the energy for this reaction to take place. Plants are going to take in water, carbon dioxide, and the energy they get from the sun, and they're going to produce two things. The first one is glucose, also written as C6H12O6, and oxygen, which is O2. So when you're eating plants, you're eating that glucose and some other nutrients. Oxygen is released throughout the plant, and we breathe it in. That kind of is why deforestation is such a big issue. You're cutting down a lot of trees, you're decreasing the amount of oxygen and increasing the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. But we'll go into more detail on that when we get into our human impact unit, which will be the next week or so. So everything on the left side of the equation, what's needed to happen for the reaction, those are your reactants. Everything that's made are your products. Left side reactants, right side products. You need the reactants for the process to happen, and you make the products. So we're going to move down over here. Okay, and we're just kind of breaking it apart. So in order to start photosynthesis, the sun has to be out. So plants aren't going to be doing photosynthesis at night when they don't have that sun, they don't have that energy. So sunlight is going to be absorbed by a green pigment called chlorophyll, and that's found in a specific part of the cell called a chloroplast. So they take that light energy, it's absorbed by the sun, okay, and the leaves play a really important role in this. The leaves is where that plant's going to be absorbing that energy. The sun's not all it needs water, so it's going to get that from its roots. Water is absorbed in the roots of the plant. Roots also help plants to stay anchored in the ground. There was one more thing, though, that plants needed for photosynthesis to happen, and that's carbon dioxide. So that's going to be absorbed in the leaves through tiny, tiny holes known as stomata. So you can't always see these with the naked eye, but on the underside of the leaf, there are really, really tiny holes or pores, and that's how carbon dioxide can get in to those leaves and into the plant and used for photosynthesis. So that covers our reactants. But we've got to look at our products. So we've produced that glucose. Okay, so that's the energy that plants need. It's a sugar. It's a very simple sugar. So it's going to be a simple carbohydrate. It's just made up of one molecule, glucose. But plants aren't going to use all that glucose at once, so they're going to store it as what's called starch, which is a complex carbohydrate. It's like putting a whole bunch of glucose molecules together. So that's their form of energy. And then we release oxygen through those same pores called stomata on the bottom or the underside of the leaf. Okay, and this is an artistic description of what those stomata look like. So you see that there's these tiny openings. Those are your stomata. Singular is just called stoma. And surrounding each stoma, you have guard cells, which are going to control when the stomata are open and when they're closed. At night, for example, when that plant is not actively photosynthesizing, it doesn't need to be open. It doesn't need to be taking in carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen. So carbon dioxide comes in to these stomata and then oxygen is going to go out. Real quick recap. Photosynthesis is how plants make their food. They take the energy from the sun, water from their roots, carbon dioxide in through their stomata, and then they produce glucose, which is their energy that they store as starch, and oxygen are also released through the stomata. And that's photosynthesis in a nutshell. Thank you for watching, and hopefully this helped and you learned something new.